The challenge of the arena. The twin suns burned above the Xeran arena, their golden light falling on thousands of alien faces. The sound of drums shook the ground as the Empire gathered to watch their favorite game. It was not a game of skill or honor. It was a show of power and cruelty. Today the victim was a human. He stood in the center of the arena, wearing nothing but torn fabric and metal cuffs. His name was Captain Elias Kane, a soldier from Earth, captured during a failed scouting mission near Xeran space. He had been brought here to fight until death. The alien crowd roared, calling him the weak species, the soft kind, the pet of the stars. Above the arena, on a shining balcony made of crystal, sat Princess Lyrana. Her silver skin glowed under the light, her golden eyes watching the human like one watches a broken toy. She was known across the Empire as beautiful, cruel, and proud. She loved to see humans fall. "Bring the human forward," the Emperor ordered. His voice echoed like thunder. "Let the crowd see the one who dares stand in our arena." Elias stepped forward slowly. His eyes calm, he looked around the massive stadium. Seeing thousands of alien soldiers, beasts, and nobles cheering for his death, he said nothing. His silence made some of them uneasy. Lyrana leaned to her father with a playful smile. "He looks lost, father. Like a child who wandered into a storm," she said. The Emperor laughed loudly. "Then let him drown in it." Then the princess smirked and spoke louder, her voice reaching the crowd. "If that human wins today," she said mockingly, "I will marry him and become his wife forever." The entire arena exploded with laughter. The sound rolled like waves bouncing off the metal walls. Elias did not smile. He only whispered, "Be careful what you promise," but no one heard him under the noise. The first gate opened. A massive alien warrior entered the arena, his armor black and shining, holding two plasma blades that hummed with deadly light. The crowd shouted his name, "Korax, Korax," the undefeated champion of 10 worlds. Elias stood still, watching his enemy. He remembered his training on Earth. He had faced worse than this in the old wars, not with stronger weapons, but with a stronger will. The horn sounded. The alien rushed forward like a beast, blades cutting through the air. Elias moved aside, barely an inch from death. His movements were fast, too fast for a man who had been starving in a cell for days. The alien struck again and again, but Elias ducked, dodged, rolled. His eyes were sharp, studying every mistake. Every breath he waited, calm as a machine. The crowd grew quiet, wondering why the human was still alive. Lyrana frowned, her golden eyes narrowing. "He is different," she whispered. When Korax raised his sword for the final strike, Elias moved. He slid under the alien's guard and hit the armor joint with a broken metal shard he had hidden. Sparks flew. Korax stumbled. Elias didn't stop. He hit again, this time into the throat. The great warrior fell to the ground with a heavy crash. The arena froze in silence for a long second. No one moved, no one breathed. Then the crowd gasped. Some shouted in disbelief, others in rage. "Impossible. The human cheated." Elias stood over the fallen alien, his chest rising slowly, blood and dust covering his face. He looked up toward the royal balcony. His voice was calm. "Round one's over." Lyrana's mocking smile disappeared. She looked at him, not as a toy now, but as something dangerous. Her heart beat faster, but she didn't know why. The Emperor leaned forward, his eyes burning with anger. "No human has ever beaten a Xeran warrior," he growled. "Send in the next one." Elias looked around the arena again, his hands shaking slightly but his eyes steady. He knew this was only the beginning. The crowd wanted his death. But the universe had other plans far above. Hidden behind the arena's force field, a small device blinked on his wrist. A human distress signal. Silent but alive, his team would hear it soon. Lyrana watched him quietly now. The laughter in her voice had faded, replaced by something strange, something she had never felt before. Respect mixed with fear. The Emperor's guards dragged away the dead champion. The drums began again, slower, louder. The gate opened for the next round. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the heat of the suns, the dust under his boots, the stares of thousands of aliens ready to see him fall. He whispered to himself, "If I survive this, Earth will never kneel again," the crowd screamed. The horn blew and the second warrior charged. The mockery turns to fear. The arena was silent for a heartbeat, then the drums began again, slow and heavy like the sound of thunder rolling through mountains. The next gate opened with a hiss and a new warrior stepped out. his armor glowing blue, his eyes burning with hatred. Elias Kane stood ready, his body shaking from exhaustion but his spirit burning stronger than ever. He had no armor, no shield, no weapon except the broken shard he held from the first fight. Still, he stood tall, calm like the eye of a storm. From the royal balcony, Princess Lyrana leaned forward, her golden eyes locked on him. She whispered softly, "He should be dead." But there was no laughter in her voice this time, only curiosity and unease. Her father, the Emperor, slammed his hand on the crystal railing. "Finish that human!" he roared. His pride had been wounded, and nothing was more dangerous than a proud emperor facing humiliation before his own people. The alien warrior charged, moving like lightning. His weapon spun in a deadly arc. Sparks flying as it sliced the air, Elias dodged, barely missing a strike that could have torn him apart. The crowd cheered, but some faces no longer smiled. They watched with tension, with fear. Every time the alien attacked, Elias studied, waiting for a mistake. He used the dust, the echoes, and the sound of the crowd to sense the next move. When he finally countered, he moved with perfect timing. One strike, one breath, one heartbeat. The alien fell, armor cracking open like a shell. The arena fell into silence again. Even the drums stopped. Only the soft sound of the alien's breathing and Elias's steps could be heard. Elias looked at the princess, his voice calm but cold. "That's two," he said. His tone carried no pride, only truth. The princess didn't answer. Her smile was gone completely now. Her hands gripped the railing as she watched the human who should have been broken, but was instead winning. The Emperor stood up, anger burning in his eyes. "You think this is victory?" he shouted. "You think this human has strength? He is still just a beast fighting in the dark." Elias turned his gaze toward him, saying nothing. His silence was sharper than any weapon. The Emperor waved to the guards. "Send the beasts, send all of them," he ordered. The crowd gasped. It was forbidden to use creatures from the outer moons in arena combat, but the Emperor's rage had no limit. The ground shook, chains rattled, and from the massive steel gate came a roar that made even the soldiers step back. A creature stepped out, 6 legs, 4 eyes covered in glowing red scales. Its claws dripped venom, its tail sparked with plasma fire. Elias's jaw tightened. He had fought monsters before, but this one was made to kill humans, designed by alien science. A symbol of fear, the princess stood shouting, "Father, that is not a duel." But he ignored her. "You made a promise. Daughter," he said with a cruel smile. "Let's see if your future husband can survive this." The creature rushed forward, smashing the ground beneath its weight. Elias rolled aside, barely avoiding death. His body ached, his ribs hurt, but his mind was sharp. He noticed the creature's breathing pattern. Heavy after every charge, slow before it swung its tail. He waited for the rhythm, counting silently. 1, 2. Now he ran forward and threw his shard into one of its eyes. The beast screamed, shaking the entire arena. In its rage, it hit the wall, cracking the metal and freeing a loose spear from the debris. Elias grabbed it. The crowd was no longer cheering. They were standing, watching, stunned. Even the princess had stopped breathing for a moment. Elias aimed the spear and jumped, driving it deep into the creature's throat. Sparks flew. Green blood spilled across the sand. The beast crashed to the ground with a deafening thud. Silence again. Thousands of eyes stared at the human who had now killed a legend of the arena. Elias fell to one knee, breathing heavily. He was bleeding, but still alive. He looked up again. 3, he said quietly. The princess felt something strange inside her chest. Fear, pride, and something else she couldn't name. Her mind whispered, "He is not fighting to live. He is fighting to prove something." The Emperor gritted his teeth. "Enough," he growled. "End this now." But the crowd began chanting, softly at first, then louder. "Human, human, human." The sound filled the arena like thunder. Shaking the walls, the Emperor looked around, realizing his people, his soldiers, were no longer laughing. They were watching a human with respect. Lyrana's voice trembled as she spoke. "Father, maybe this is not weakness we're seeing." Elias stood up slowly, the sun shining behind him. His shadow stretched across the blood-stained sand. He raised his eyes toward the balcony, his voice low but strong. "You mocked me when I came here," he said, "but you will remember me when I leave." The princess stared at him, her heart pounding. She didn't know if it was fear or admiration, but she couldn't look away. The Emperor shouted for guards. "Kill him while he still breathes!" Dozens of soldiers rushed toward the arena, weapons drawn. Elias turned to face them, tightening his grip on the broken spear. He smiled faintly. "Then come," he whispered. Elias looked up, and a small smile touched his lips. "Right on time," he murmured. The alien crowd gasped as a symbol appeared on the ship's hull. A blue circle with a silver star inside it, the mark of Earth's fleet. The monster and the man, the sky burned silver as the massive human ship broke through the clouds. Its engines hummed like thunder, shaking the entire Zirin arena. Every alien froze, staring upward for the first time in centuries. They saw a human warship above their world. Elias Kane stood in the center of the arena, his chest covered in dust and blood. His eyes lifted to the sky, a faint smile crossing his face. He whispered softly, "They heard me." The Emperor rose from his throne in rage. His golden armor flashed under the twin suns. "What trick is this?" he roared. "No human fleet could reach Zirin space. Our defenses are impenetrable." But even as he spoke, the ship's shadow spread across the city, dark and wide like the hand of fate. Princess Lyrana stared at the sky, her heart pounding. The symbol on the ship's hull, the silver star of Earth, burned into her memory. She looked back at Elias, whispering, "Who are you?" He turned his gaze toward her balcony, his voice calm and clear. "A man you promised to marry if he wins." Her breath caught, not because of his words, but because of the way he said them. Not as a joke, not as pride, but as a statement of truth. The Emperor's anger turned to fear. "Destroy that ship," he commanded. "Activate the orbital cannons." Dozens of alien guards rushed to obey, but the sky answered first. Blue light burst from the human dreadnought, disabling the Zirin cannons before they could even aim. The ground trembled, towers shook, and the crowd screamed. Elias raised his voice over the chaos. "Stop fighting. Your world doesn't need to fall today." But the Emperor shouted back, "You dare speak of peace while you invade my skies? You will die, human." He slammed a control crystal on his throne, and suddenly the arena floor split open. The ground cracked as a huge platform rose, carrying a sealed chamber of glass and steel. Inside it was a creature far larger than the last, a weapon the Empire had hidden for war. The glass shattered, and from the smoke stepped a monster of living metal. Its skin shimmered with silver scales, its arms long and sharp like blades. Its head was covered with black armor, and its eyes glowed like fire. The princess gasped, "No, father. That thing is uncontrollable." The Emperor smiled coldly. "Then it will destroy both of them." Elias turned slowly. Facing the beast, his heartbeat slowed. His training took over. Every sound, every vibration, every breath of wind became clear to him. The creature roared, charging forward. Its footsteps broke the ground beneath it. Its blades sliced through stone like paper. Elias rolled aside, dust exploding around him. He grabbed the broken spear, but the weapon shattered on impact. Sparks burned his arm. Pain shot through his shoulder. Still, he didn't stop. The monster swung again. Elias jumped back, barely surviving the hit. He looked up at the towering machine, scanning for weak points. He noticed thin cables near its neck, glowing blue, pulsing like veins. He ran toward the wall, using fallen debris as steps. Climbing fast, the crowd shouted. The princess stood frozen. Watching his every move, the creature turned, slicing through pillars to reach him. But Elias leapt onto its back. Holding on to the shifting metal plates, he grabbed one of the glowing cables and ripped it out. Sparks and liquid metal splattered across his face. The beast screamed like thunder. The Emperor rose in disbelief. "No, that's impossible." The creature swung its arm wildly, trying to shake him off. Elias slid down. Landing hard on the ground, his legs barely held him. He picked up a broken chain, spinning it like a whip. He threw it toward the monster's exposed neck, the chain wrapping around the glowing cables. Then he pulled with all his strength. The cables ripped free, the light inside them dying. The monster staggered, roaring in agony, and then fell forward, crushing half of the arena floor. The shockwave threw Elias backward. The sand rose like smoke, and for a moment nothing moved. The crowd was silent, unable to believe what they saw. The Emperor's face turned pale. Lyrana's hands trembled as she leaned over the balcony. He killed the guardian beast," she whispered. Her voice was filled with awe, not mockery. Elias pushed himself up, his clothes torn, his body bleeding, but his eyes steady. He looked up again and said in a low voice, 3 monsters, 3 victories, how many more do you want?" The Emperor stepped back, his voice shaking. You can't be human." Elias smiled faintly. "Oh, I am," he said, "and that's your problem." The arena lights flickered as communication screens came alive across the city. The image of a human admiral appeared, his voice echoed through the air. "To the Zyran Empire, this is Fleet Command of Earth. Your arena is surrounded, your forces are disabled. Any act of aggression will be met with response." The crowd gasped again. The aliens looked at each other. The fear was now real. The Emperor shouted at the sky, "You cannot threaten me in my own world." But Lyrana whispered softly, "They already have." Elias stood tall, raising his hand toward the ship above. He tapped the small device on his wrist, and the dreadnought's lights dimmed in reply. Then he turned to the princess, his voice calm but heavy with purpose. "You said if I win, you would be mine," he said. "Are you ready to keep your word?" The crowd held its breath. The Emperor glared at his daughter. "You will not speak to him." But Lyrana stepped forward, her golden eyes shining. Her voice was steady. "I made a promise." "Father," she said slowly, "and the Princess of Zyran does not break promises." The Emperor's rage erupted. "Then you are no daughter of mine," he shouted, raising his staff toward her. Energy built at its tip, glowing red. Elias moved instantly, throwing himself between them. The beam fired, striking his chest. The blast echoed through the arena like a thunderclap. Smoke filled the air. Lyrana screamed, "No!" as Elias fell to the ground unmoving. The Emperor lowered his staff, breathing hard. "It ends now," he said. But as the dust cleared, something shimmered in the air. A blue shield flickering over Elias's body. A human combat field still active, and from the sky, the dreadnought's voice thundered, "Warning, harm to our officer detected." Retaliatory strike protocol engaged. The clouds turned red as the ship charged its weapons. Lyrana's eyes widened in horror. She looked at her father and whispered, "What have you done?" The Emperor's deception. The sky glowed red as the human dreadnought prepared to fire. Its massive cannons hummed with deadly power, the air trembling like a living thing. The crowd screamed, running for cover. The Zyran capital was seconds away from destruction. But in the middle of the chaos, Princess Lyrana knelt beside Elias Kane. Her hands trembled as she touched his face. His armor flickered with blue light, his chest rising weakly. "He was still alive, stay with me." "Human," she whispered, "don't you dare die now." His eyes opened slowly. His voice was weak but steady. "Still. Not done yet." Above them, the dreadnought's targeting systems locked onto the Emperor's palace. A voice echoed across the sky. "Last warning, surrender immediately or be destroyed." The Emperor looked up, fear in his eyes for the first time in years. He raised his arms, pretending to yield. "Stop. Stop this madness." He shouted, "We surrender." The red glow on the ship faded. The cannons powered down. The city fell silent except for the crackle of smoke and the heavy breathing of the crowd. Lyrana helped Elias to his feet. "It's over," she said softly. "You survived. And you won." But Elias's eyes were sharp. He looked at the Emperor and said, "No. It's never over when tyrants still breathe." The Emperor's face changed, his fear fading, replaced by a cold smile. "You're right, human," he said slowly. "It's not over yet." Before anyone could react, the ground beneath the arena shifted. The floor opened again, revealing a massive platform rising from below. It was covered in glowing red crystals, an energy core, a planetary weapon. Lyrana's eyes widened in horror. "Father, what are you doing?" The Emperor laughed darkly. "You think I would surrender to Earth? To a single human? Never. This city will burn, this planet will burn, but I will not kneel." Guards rushed forward, grabbing Lyrana, pulling her away from Elias. She screamed, "No! Let me go!" Elias stumbled forward, trying to reach her, but his body was weak, his vision blurred. His shield flickered on and off. The Emperor turned toward him. "You may have called your fleet, but I will show them the power of the Zyran bloodline." He raised his hand, activating the weapon. The crystals began to pulse brighter, charging energy strong enough to destroy everything within miles. Lyrana broke free from the guards, running toward the control panel. Her voice cracked with panic. "You'll kill us all!" The Emperor shouted, "Better death than defeat!" Elias forced himself to move. Every muscle screamed in pain, but his mind focused on one goal. Stop the weapon, save her. He pulled a small device from his wrist, a human detonator with limited EMP range. "This might work," he muttered. He looked at Lyrana. Their eyes met for a second, and in that moment, she understood what he was about to do. "No." She shouted, "You'll die!" Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe." But at least I'll die human. He threw the device toward the reactor. A blinding flash exploded across the chamber. The weapon core shut down instantly. The lights in the arena went dark. The shockwave threw everyone to the ground. When the smoke cleared, the Emperor was gone, thrown into the shadows. The guards were unconscious, the weapon was dead. Lyrana crawled through the debris, searching desperately. Elias, Elias! She found him lying near the broken crystals, his armor cracked, blood running down his arm, but he was alive. Barely. She held him close, her voice shaking. Why would you do that? You could have let them fire, you could have left me. He smiled weakly. Because that's not who we are, he said softly. Humans. Protect what matters, even when it hurts. Lyrana's eyes filled with tears. You shouldn't care about us. We treated you like nothing, Elias whispered. Maybe. But you're not like them. Before she could answer, a new sound echoed, the hum of engines approaching. From the far side of the city, smaller ships descended. Marked with the Emperor's crest, Lyrana frowned. That's impossible. Those are our royal transports, Elias tried to stand. Then your father's not done yet. Moments later, the Emperor appeared again, carried by soldiers in golden armor. His eyes burned with madness. You destroyed my weapon, human, he said. But I have something better. Your fleet's command codes. He raised a glowing device, projecting a stream of encrypted signals. Your ship listens to every broadcast, doesn't it? Watch now as it obeys me instead. Elias's heart froze. No, he couldn't have. But the dreadnought above began to shift position, its cannons turning slowly toward the surface again. Not to protect, but to fire, Lyrana gasped. He's turning your ship against us. Elias clenched his fists, forcing himself up. No, I can stop it, I just need... The Emperor cut him off, laughing. You need nothing, human. I control your technology now, and I will use it to erase both you and your planet from the stars. He turned toward the sky, shouting, Fire! The dreadnought's cannons began to glow blue again. The entire arena filled with light. Lyrana screamed, Father, please! Stop, the Emperor smiled coldly. No one commands me, not gods, not humans. Not even fate. Elias looked up, his vision fading. His communicator blinked faintly, showing a single red light. Override code, he whispered weakly. Typing through the blood on his fingers, Lyrana held him. You can't. You're too weak. He looked into her eyes and smiled faintly. Watch me. He pressed the final command and the dreadnought froze mid-fire. The lights flickered, the cannons powered down. The Emperor screamed in fury. What did you do? Elias stood tall, breathing hard. I reminded the ship who it belongs to. Lyrana's heart raced. He looked broken but unyielding. The Emperor raised his weapon again, shouting, Then you die with her. But before he could fire, a shadow fell across them. Dozens of smaller human ships descending through the clouds, their lights cutting through the smoke. The human fleet had arrived. The princess's promise. The skies over Xiron burned gold and red as the human fleet descended through the clouds. Their engines thundered like storms, shaking the air itself. The people of the Empire fell to their knees, some crying, some praying. For the first time in centuries, the Xirons saw fear, not from war but from justice. Elias Kane stood in the middle of the ruined arena, his armor cracked, his body bleeding, yet his spirit unbroken. Around him, the sand glowed with the light of human ships above. Princess Lyrana stood beside him, her silver hair falling across her face, her golden eyes wide with shock and guilt. They're going to destroy us, she whispered. Your fleet will end everything. Elias turned his head slowly toward her, his voice low but steady. Only if your father gives them a reason. The Emperor still stood on the broken balcony, his weapon shaking in his hands. His crown was cracked, his armor covered in dust. Yet his pride was still alive. You think you've won? He shouted down. You've brought your people here to die with you. He raised his control crystal again, but this time, it sparked. The connection was gone. The human override had erased his command codes. His own weapon betrayed him. Elias's communicator flickered with light. A voice came through, cold, strong, human. Captain Kane, your vitals are critical. Do we initiate strike protocol? Elias took a deep breath. Negative, he answered. Hold position. The human admiral's voice was calm. Confirm, Captain. The enemy world is hostile. Elias looked around at the terrified crowd, the broken soldiers, the wounded guards trying to help each other. Not hostile, he said quietly. Just lost. He cut the channel and turned toward Lyrana. This doesn't have to end in fire, she looked up at him, her eyes shining. Why would you show mercy? We mocked you, hurt you, tried to kill you, Elias smiled weakly. Because that's what makes us human, princess. We fight hard, but we forgive harder. Lyrana stared at him, her heart pounding. You could have let your fleet destroy us, he nodded. I could have, but then I'd be like your father. Up on the balcony, the Emperor screamed in rage. You think mercy makes you strong? It makes you weak. He fired his weapon toward Elias again. But before the blast could hit, Lyrana stepped in front of him, spreading her arms. The beam struck the energy barrier on her royal pendant. Shattering it into sparks, the impact threw her back. She fell to the ground beside Elias, gasping for air. Elias caught her, holding her close. Why would you do that? He asked, his voice breaking. She smiled faintly. Because maybe. I finally learned what strength means, the Emperor shouted. No daughter of mine will betray her blood. But a new sound echoed above them. A human voice from the dreadnought, amplified through every speaker across the city. To the Ziran Empire. Surrender now or face total annihilation. Elias looked up at the sky and spoke softly. Hold your fire, she's making her choice. Lyrana pushed herself up weakly. She stood before the Emperor, her once perfect gown torn and burned. Yet she stood proud, her voice was steady. You told me that pride builds empires, she said. But pride also destroys them. She turned to the crowd, her golden eyes glowing under the sunlight. Today we kneel not in shame, but in hope. We surrender, the crowd gasped, whispering among themselves. The Emperor's face turned pale. You dare? Lyrana raised her voice louder, stronger. Yes, I dare. I am Princess Lyrana of Ziran, and I declare peace with Earth, effective now. Her words echoed through every speaker, transmitted across every city, every colony. The sound of silence followed. Deep, endless silence. Then, one by one, the alien soldiers dropped their weapons. Kneeling in respect, the Emperor stood trembling, his hands shaking. You've doomed us all, he hissed. Elias looked up at him. No, she just saved you. The Emperor tried to fire again, but his weapon overloaded, exploding in his hand. The blast threw him backward, and for the first time, the mighty ruler of Ziran fell. Lyrana closed her eyes, whispering a quiet prayer for her father, then turned to Elias. You kept your word. You won, he smiled faintly, his voice weak. And you kept yours. The human ships above began to withdraw, their engines glowing blue. Peace banners appeared across their screens. Humanity had not conquered. They had forgiven. The crowd began to chant softly, Human, Human. It spread like wind through the ruins. Growing louder, stronger, Elias looked at Lyrana. Your people will remember this day, he said. The day you chose peace over pride. She smiled, her voice soft but filled with strength. And they'll remember the human who taught me what honor means. He looked up at the sky as the human ships turned away. I should go, he said quietly. She reached for his hand, holding it gently. You can't. Not yet, he raised an eyebrow. Why not? She smiled, repeating the words she once said in mockery. But now with truth, because I made a promise. If you win, I'll be your wife forever. Elias looked into her eyes, tired but filled with emotion. You sure you want that? She laughed softly. You won the arena. You saved my people, you changed my world. I think you've earned it. The suns shone bright above them, bathing the arena in golden light. The human and the alien stood together. Once enemies, now united above them. The dreadnought broadcasted one final message across the stars. Victory does not belong to the strongest, but to the most human. The crowd cheered, voices mixing across species. Hope rising again in a galaxy that had forgotten mercy. As the twin suns set behind the horizon, Elias Kane stood beside Lyrana, watching the sky turn to fire and gold. He whispered softly, maybe this time peace will last, and the legend spread across every world, every empire, every star, the human who made a princess his queen.